All right.
1, 2, 3, 4 on both sides.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And again, I encourage you to have a small stack of paper underneath this. You'll find it works much better. If you'd like, by the door, I've got stacks of scrap paper. You can get 5 to 10 sheets. It'll make your life easier. On cell number 1, we're going to title it circles. This is a compass. If you're using one of mine, yours looks pretty similar to this. And it has this little wheel here. Please, 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 if you would like to break my compass, the best way to do it would be to yank this open or shove this shut. That's not the way we operate these. Use the wheel, spin the wheel to open it and close it. Notice that if you open it up too wide, it will pop off these threaded screws. Do not do that, especially if it's mine. Don't get too big, don't get too crazy. Now, here's the way a compass works. Once you fix a length between the two tips, one is metal, one is graphite, that's like the radius of a circle. So for example, if I take this, put it needle part, the metal part in the center here, and dig it in a little bit, because I've got that stack of paper underneath. I then reach up and I just pinch the top and I twist. Ideally dragging this slightly slanted around in a circle. And you should end up making a circle. You'll also leave a little hole in the paper. Once you've made one circle, change the width using the wheel, and then make a second circle. Because these two circles share a center, they're called concentric circles. Con means with, center, concentric circles. So in the second slot, we're going to call it something pretty, and we're making one circle, not too big. And when we finish this circle, don't change your radius. I'm going to come over and I'm going to anchor the needle on the edge of my circle. It's on the perimeter of the circle, and make a second circle. They're overlapping. They make this kind of football shape. If I find the end point where the two circles meet, and I anchor my needle again and make a third circle, and then slowly work my way around the original circle, always on the original circle, finding that point of intersection of the most previously drawn one. It should come out making something pretty. But of course, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. You might not find this pretty. I'm going to circulate around and see if people need help. So if we're going to copy a segment, what are the two attributes that a segment has that makes it unique? It has a fixed length between 2 points, right? And is it curvy or wavy? Super straight, isn't it? So if we want to copy this, we need those two attributes. We need the straight component and we need the specific length. I'm going to start by giving myself the straight. I'm going to make an extra long segment. Is this straight? Yeah. So now I just have to find how to cut off this amount and show it on here. I'm going to start by copying the really easy part. This first endpoint is called A. I'm going to move it over here and call this first endpoint a copy of A, which means it's A prime. Okay, I've copied A directly over so that this endpoint is A. This endpoint is A prime. And prime just means it's a copy of the original. Now I need to find out how long this length is. Normally, you'd probably use a ruler. Well, two problems with that. One, it might not fall directly where it needs to. And two, if we're doing this building a system of Euclidean geometry, there are no markings on our straight edge. We're supposed to treat this as though there are no markings. But that's right, we can use our compass for this. So I'm going to take my compass, I'm going to anchor the needle on A, and I'm going to slowly open until I get to the end of B. And once I get there, I'm going to mark it and say, see, I'm marking it that long. Then I pick it up, not changing the distance, and I anchor it on A prime and make a little mark to show how far down this segment I should go to produce B prime. And what I've just created is segment AB congruent to segment A prime, B prime. I copied that segment. Fourth one, we are going to produce something called a perpendicular bisector. One of my favorite words, perpendicular. Perpendicular. I'm sorry that that song will now sing through your head. Perpendicular. Okay, to begin with, if we're going to create a bisector of something, we have to have something to create a bisector to. What does bisector mean? Good, slices it directly in half. So lots of things can be a bisector. We can have a point that's a bisector called a midpoint. We could have a line that's a bisector. We could have a ray that's a bisector, just half of one sticking out a little bit. But here's what we're going to do. Using our compass, I'm going to adjust my compass to be exactly halfway. No, wait a minute. I couldn't possibly do that. Come on, stop talking, please. I could not possibly guess what is exactly halfway, could I? I could get close, but it wouldn't be exact. So instead, I'm going to choose a dimension that is more than halfway. It's about 3/4, maybe it could be 2/3. As long as it's more than halfway, I'll anchor on the right-hand endpoint and I'll make an arc. Then I'll pick up my compass without changing the size and copy that same length to the other endpoint. What I then produced is something that looks kind of like a football. And if I look at the endpoints of this one and the endpoints of this one and draw something to connect them, I produce my perpendicular bisector. That is now perfectly bisecting my original segment. Remember these hash marks we used to show that. And it's perpendicular, which I demonstrate by putting a right angle indicator there. Please make sure in your notations that you've got these hash marks showing that they're evenly split and the right angle indicator saying it's perpendicular. Say again? Can you have help? Yeah. Yeah. All right, so let's flip over to the other side. Number 5. This one, we're going to do a segment addition. Well, if we're going to do a segment addition, we should have 2 segments that we want to add. So I'm going to draw 2 pretty short segments. I don't want them to be super long, because then when I add them, it would be too long. Now, once again, when I add segments, there's 2 components. One is that it's got to be a straight line, and the second is that it's got to be a certain length. So I'm going to start by giving myself a long straight line. And let's label our first one here AB, and our second one CD. What should I call this first point right here? Almost. A prime, good, because it's a copy of A. So just like we did in the prior skill, I want to copy this length AB down onto my green segment. So I adjust my compass to be just the right size and make an arc. And I make that arc to show where it came from. The overarching theme in this course is how do we know when something is true? So showing our work is a big part of that. And then what's this point? Good, B prime. It's the result of moving B down to here. Now I'm just going to append my blue CD segment onto the end. So we'll copy CD. I'll pick that up, starting it at B prime, make a mark. And that point is a copy of our D, so I'll put D prime. It's a little odd to say that C prime and B prime exist at the same point, but if that helps you see it, that's okay. Now, how do we convey what we did here? We took AB and we added CD. And when I write them like this, what does that mean? I didn't put any symbol over the top. When I just write AB, what does that mean? The length of segment AB. It's like 3.7 inches plus 5.2 inches equals what? A prime D prime, right? Because AD would be different. If I connected A and D, that would be a different length. I want to say that A prime D prime, which is straight. Your homework tonight has 2 parts. If you have not finished up the quiz, you'll finish up the quiz. Secondly, I want you to reproduce the last 3 things we did here. I want you to copy a segment. I want you to do a perpendicular bisector. And I want you to do segment addition. If you don't have a compass, that would be the thing to do in class right now, wouldn't it? Do these constructions, and then you can do the next effort of the quiz at home.